Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Ad Age's NewFront After Party. I am your host, Janine Poggi, Senior Editor here at Ad Age, and I am joined by my co-host, our tech reporter, Garrett Sloan. Hi, Garrett.
Hi, Janine.
How are you?
Doing well. Great to be with you live on video after slacking all week about NewFronts.
All week. It was constant. And cheers. Let's cheers maybe to the end of NewFront, right?
We practiced it.
We could do it, right? Maybe.
Cheers.
There we go. You would think after all this time, I know which way, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Now it's a party.
For joining us. Well, we can't drink together this year. And, we didn't get a chance to rub elbows with social influencers, many of which you've probably never even heard of. Ad Age has brought together marketing and agency leaders who over the course of the next hour will break down this week's biggest hits and misses, identify which trends are in and which are not, and pinpoint the words and phrases that will surely be instrumental to define this year's negotiations. Of course, this was the first year the NewFronts were virtual. Garrett, what did you make of streaming the presentations? Did you prefer sitting at your computer all day? Is it better for you in person?
Oh, well, I do enjoy running around the city, going all the way west in Manhattan to past the Hudson River. But this did make it a little easier just to, switch to the streams and see TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, and just, follow along. So that was fine.
Yeah, I did have some buffering anxiety, when we had to switch over from Vimeo into Hulu's credentialed site. Mine was just buffering endlessly. I was furiously texting you, I think. And it's sort of the same anxiety of like when you wait to try to get a cab and just like hoping you're going to get it to make it in time for the next presentation. That was my only hiccup, though. I think it went otherwise pretty smooth.
No, that's a very good point. We did get some of that anxiety of trying to log into things, and it was still rush, and we had that feeling, I think. It was still some of that NewFront feeling.
Any presentations, stand out to you as done especially well?
Well, I wanted to say that Scott Rogowski was a good host. I was commenting earlier, but I thought maybe given the times, he's Trivia Daddy. We should have had Corona Daddy Andrew Cuomo as the host. He's more hip today, I think. Other than that, Scott Rogowski was good, and who you would expect, I think, was like YouTube. They did a just polished job and had so much content. Snapchat, for the first time this year, was doing something, or the first time with the New York NewFront, and TikTok, of course, everyone wanted to see. So those were the three.
Yeah, I thought TikTok was well done. I'm not a TikTok user, so it's hard for me to sort of judge it. But I actually thought that their presentation was pretty informative and just like looked really good. So kudos to them. So let's get started. We're going to kick things off by dissecting this year's buzzwords with IAB President David Cohen. Hello, David.
Hello. How are you?
I am good. How are you? Are you relieved the week's over?
I think it's a sigh. Yeah, it's been a week. Really, really pleased to see how things turned out.
Yeah, and you guys pulled all this together, and you only joined the IAB in like April, if I'm not mistaken, like the height of the pandemic. What was it like sort of coming in, lockdowns, and then like pulling all of this off?
It's what we call the new normal, Janine. It's kind of like it's been every week has introduced a new sense of challenge and opportunity, and it's been we've done a chronology of what's happened since February on the NewFronts specifically. It's been the NewFronts that almost never happened, and just seeing all of the presenters this week, seeing the fact that we had over 12,500 registrants. It's been a labor of love, I know, for lots of folks back at the IAB, an events team that would never take no for an answer. So it's just been really gratifying to see us pull it off.
And of course, this comes at a time where between coronavirus, between the protests, the mood of the country is certainly very different. And, NewFronts have always been sort of an upbeat kind of party atmosphere. How are you making sure you were sort of striking the right tone here?
It's a great question. And we really leveraged the buying community, agencies and brands specifically, to help us figure out what is the appropriate tone? How do we strike that balance? How do we tell stories? It's been a very, very kind of interesting and disturbing time in our country. We had a town hall that hopefully many people saw on Wednesday with Monique Nelson, who is the CEO of UWG. And Monique has been working with us for some time, and she's fantastic. She had two key phrases that I just want to repeat. One of them is crisis. I don't know if you heard that. It's a crisis that comes in threes. It was the coronavirus, followed by the economic crisis, followed by kind of the racial injustice and inequality crisis. So that's kind of one thing that I took away. She also had 3 A's, acknowledge, action, and accountability. And that's what we're really trying to do at the IAB. If you could just allow me for 2 seconds just to talk about the stuff that we're doing in that space, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. Please do.
So we have stuff that we're really doing focused internally, IAB, kind of our employee base. We're calling it Change Equity, which is really we're calling it a 401k for people's time. We're giving our folks 2 days a month to devote to any social, civil, political cause of their choosing from now until election day. And we hope that, once you think about that, 2 days a month in a relatively small company like the IAB is something. But if you start getting other companies to do that, it becomes exponentially powerful. And then externally, we're doing something that we called IAB Access. For the NewFronts this week, we opened access to the NewFronts to colleges and universities with a specific focus on historically Black colleges and universities to give folks a taste of what is the industry that they're potentially coming into. And this is the best of what our industry has to offer. And we're going to continue that with ongoing connection with those folks to help them potentially get into our business, because we definitely need a better feeder system to get people in at the entry level.
That's great.
And we also, just one last thing, we also are doing a call to arms. We have an action plan within 60 days. We are asking the industry to help us craft what are we going to do? The name of the town hall was Where Do We Go From Here? We want folks to join our cause. Cheryl Goldstein, who leads the diversity and inclusion efforts at the IAB, is leading that. Cheryl, SHERYL at IAB.com, if you're interested in helping craft that.
Great. Please keep us posted, of course, any developments that come out of that. And a shout out to any of the students watching. That's really exciting. Hopefully there are some takeaways here that they can be useful to them.
We had over 400, I think.
That's
that was
great.
awesome. Yeah.
Great. So we're going to have a little fun here. I am going to throw out a few buzzwords from the week. And I want you to tell me in your own words, maybe 5 words or less, what your takeaways are on these topics. All right?
You might have to give me a little latitude. It might be 6 or 7, but okay.
I'm holding you to it.
Fantastic. I expect nothing less.
Okay, first one, viewer first.
A swipe or click away from irrelevance is what comes to mind.
Yeah, we heard it.
Not viewer first. Who else would it be? We are all in service of viewers and consumers.
It felt like that was the phrase of the presenters who were sort of talking about new ad models, making sure that they're thinking first about the viewers versus, about what advertisers necessarily need first. Next one, shoppable experiences.
I think it was Pam Drucker-Mann from Condé Nast who coined the phrase, shoppability is the new viewability. And that's what comes to mind. You want to be, from inspiration to shopping cart, you want it to be like 1 or 2 clicks away.
Incremental reach. I feel like this was a newer phrase. I feel like we always hear scale, scale, scale. This year, I felt like incremental reach was the word.
It is still a reach and frequency world, and we are all just living in it. I think that was a takeaway. Reach and frequency as a concept has been around for a long, long time. And we are kind of the market is evolving. We're in 2020, and we are still thinking about what's our base plan and how do we fill it in. Historically, the base has been linear television, but many of the presenters have shown that streaming has actually taken over in terms of time spent relative. I know Samsung was one of those ones that talked about over 50% of their time is actually being streamed. So we're going to see that pivot. I have to use that as a word. I'm sorry. Pivot is another one. Coming weeks and months, I think.
Next one is frequency caps. Another one we've been talking about for many years now.
Repetition isn't always mastery, is what comes to mind. Sometimes hitting people over the head many, many, many times is not the best thing to do. And I think that that's a challenge that we have in the space, is that we have lots of disconnected ecosystems, lots of disconnected technology and data, and sometimes we're hitting the same people with the same message over and over again. So we're working on that. The IAB Tech Lab is working on lots of standards to help frequency management.
And last one, there was a couple of made-up generations that we heard about this week, one being Hulu's Generation Stream.
Generation Stream, yeah, we had Generation Z, we had the Snapchat generation. There were lots of generations.
There's some generations.
Yeah, I would say that the thing comes to mind is we've seen a 10 years of streaming evolution play itself out over 10 weeks. So people have been talking about the streaming decade. We've seen that coronavirus has accelerated streaming unlike anything that we've ever seen before. So that's what immediately comes to mind. This is clearly Generation Stream.
Great. Thanks, David. And before we let you go, any favorite moments for the week?
Jeanine, I was afraid you were going to ask me that. Do you have a favorite child? I don't have a favorite child. We love all our children equally. I think that there was some that made you kind of sit up and take notice more than others. There were some that that were different, but they were all good. So I will refrain from answering that question. I mean, if I was pushed, the one that sticks with me, Vice, I think was one that really, really hit home for me, and that was meaningful.
Well, I think their message of block lists and all that was just super relevant right now too. So,
and we're going to do something about that. Jeanine, thank you for having me.
We're holding you to it. Thank you so much, David, and go get some rest.
Will do. Thanks.
So we have, hi to everyone watching. We have a couple of shout outs. We have Eduardo from Mexico City. We have Mariah from Georgia. We have Rafael from Waterloo, Pamela from Wisconsin, Mark from Minnesota, Christian from Peru, and Benjamin from Long Island. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. And Garrett, I think we're back to you now.
Yes. Hey, Jeanine. I think we're going to try and get through some tweets here because we had some obviously followed along in real time on Twitter, even though they weren't presenting.
Before we do that, how about we do our hits and misses first? I think we should go with that first, and then let's go to
so?
Yeah, let's do that.
First.
Let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
Fair.
All right. So we're gonna break down some of this week's hits or misses, and to help us do that, we have a couple of marketing and agency experts here. We have Azania Andrews, who's VP of Connections at Anheuser-Busch, Jessica Brown, Director of Digital Investment at Group M, and Noah Mallon, Chief Brand Strategist at IMGN. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Late Friday afternoon, but appreciate you guys being here. So this is how it will work. We are going to go through a few categories, and for each one, our panel will identify which digital publisher got it right and which struck out, and provide us with some details as to why. So, I do want to start with the topic. David and I were just talking about diversity and inclusion and the messages that many of the digital publishers presenting this week had for, advertisers and clients. So which presenter was authentic in its rhetoric about standing up against racism, and whose messages fell short? Azania, maybe do you want to start and take this one?
Sure. It's Azania, by the way, but no, it's okay. So I would say, I think honestly, this is like a time for empathy. So I'm not going to call out anybody for missing. What I'm going to acknowledge is the recognition that our entire industry is trying. And, as a Black woman who's been working in advertising and marketing for 20 years, it's great to see. And I hope that everybody follows through on the promises that they made and the commitments that they put forth about what they're going to do to create change within their own organizations and within the industry at large.
Azania, what do you think, based upon what you hear, needs to happen next? Because obviously there's been a lot of conversations, but what actions do you think need to happen? You mentioned it has to be follow through.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the publisher community, right, that we were hearing from this week, I think that there are things that need to be done in terms of workplace equity and safety, right, and all the things that we've been seeing, the changes that have been happening within organizations. So recruitment and retention of diverse employees, I think is of critical importance. And then for me, the next step would be proper engagement of people of color within the creative community. So are we having not just talent in front of the camera, but our production partners and all those things reflecting the consumer base that we're trying to see are for me the kind of immediate next steps that the publishing community can take.
Gotcha. Noah, do you have any thoughts on this? I thought one that was interesting was Condé Nast in particular, simply because of everything that's been going on at the company. Roger Lynch obviously came on at the beginning of the presentation live to address some of the internal issues. Any takeaways from that or any others?
Yeah, I mean, I thought obviously they were going to be in a tough position during this, and they were pretty game in addressing it and not ducking what I think was the elephant in the room. But to me, the most interesting presentation when it comes to really addressing what's happening now and kind of the outcry we're hearing from so much of our society and within and without our industry was Vice, who I think really went further than just talking about it, but are building shows around it. They have the 846 project, which is a show that they announced that's going to really directly address this, but also their whole position around block lists, which we just heard about as well. But that's not a new position for them. So they're able to really speak to it from not this is something that we just came up with, but they've been talking about this for months, with advertisers really needing to be more thoughtful about where they choose not to show up as well as where they choose to show up. So if you think about where Vice has evolved from kind of the bro culture of maybe 5 years ago to how they're approaching the content they create and how they look at the marketplace, it's a real switch, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Jessica, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just echoing a lot of what the other panelists said. I think Monique from Uniworld had a really good description when she said allyship is a verb. So it's what are the tangible things that agencies are doing and the publishers are doing. Vice was a great example of something tangible that agencies can do, is making sure that when we implement campaigns, we're aligned with what our brands stand for. If it's an inclusion list or an exclusion list, that has to align with what the brand is saying, which kudos to Vice for calling that out. The other thing that I would add is I think the news, all of the news partners, I love the news day, seeing how important news is in this world and how agencies and brands really need to lean into that to make sure that we're getting the truth out there. And it was great to see that we can do that in brand safe ways. So I was really excited about the news content.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in here for a sec because I'm going to ask about coronavirus and just how that impacted this whole presentation. And hello, everyone. I didn't say hello earlier, so thanks for coming on.
Hi.
Good to see you all. With coronavirus, obviously, it's affected the whole presentation. People couldn't congregate in person, but everyone's also talking about what it means for brands and how they're going to just buy digital media going forward. Maybe they have to be more flexible. So every company had to have a message where they are flexible, agile, whatever it may be. So I could start with Azania on that. Is there anything working with Anheuser? What does flexibility mean?
Yeah, I think the last 90 days, right, has taught us a lot about how to be nimble and change plans, and the need to change plans, because there's just so much absolute uncertainty about what's going on, particularly for us who invest heavily in sports. And so to have little to no live sports for much of the last 3 months has required a lot of adjustment on our part. So I was really grateful to see the publishing community kind of acknowledge that. I thought Roku in particular talked a lot about flexibility in their kind of upfront commitments, what they would do, the timing, the term limits, and sort of full recognition of our need to be nimble. And so I hope that that's something that's sort of pervasive across the industry, and that we all find a way to kind of move forward in this new normal where things for sure are going to have to change.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Roku, I believe, said sports was they'll target fitness or something along those lines, or there's other ways to target those audiences on digital. No, do you have other sort of flexibilities you could think of?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Azania is exactly right in calling out the way Roku not only spoke about how to target differently, but even geographically. Because if you think about what we're already seeing, which is different parts of the country are opening up at different speeds, and in some cases closing back up, and they really spoke to having to be thoughtful geographically and being able to switch out creative to do that. So I thought that was really smart, but that also leads to the ability to be very nimble and fast on the creative side, even from a production standpoint. And I think some partners touched on that, but it would have been nice to see more partners talk about their ability to kind of turn creative production around quickly and nimbly, because that's certainly something that I've seen a lot of brands learning, and something that we were asked to do.
Mm-hmm. And Jessica, quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, just the same thing. Roku was really the only one that I think directly addressed flexibility, at least in terms of a commitment. I think the flexibility is probably table stakes this year in conversations and in any deals. And also, I think flexibility, to everyone else's point, is how we execute things creatively, whether it's content that's maybe not professionally produced in the way we've traditionally been used to, but Zoom, or content that's created on a phone, and quickly transitioning creative messaging and themes based on what is going to resonate the most with consumers.
Absolutely. Now, Janine, how about frequency? Is that something we could get into a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously one of the biggest complaints in connected TV and OTT is seeing the same ad over and over. They're trying to fix this, but which publisher you think made strides to correct this, and anyone failed to address it? Maybe Jessica, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, sure. So I think everyone definitely made their attempt to address it, which is important because it's a real issue in the industry we have to address. It just feels like it's happening in the same silos and the same, in the same platform that we're talking about. So it doesn't really help the industry. We still need an industry-wide solution to help us across different partners, but we're definitely making progress. We have to address the issue, step by step. So it's a good sign.
Noah, how about you? Anyone do this well, or do you think are taking the right steps to move this forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Jessica's point, so much of this is a pipeline issue and even an inventory challenge. So I think over time it will get better. Hulu, as they have in the past, I think has been the most direct in addressing this, in part because they offer, a lot of different ad options. So even the ability to recognize if somebody's binging and to adjust the ad load based on that, I think they have probably the most thoughtful set of tools.
Great. Now let's talk a little bit also about some ad formats, from shoppable content to Jumbotron ads. There were plenty of new ad formats introduced this week. Which stands out, which were lackluster? Azania, from AB's perspective, are there any that, really stood out to you, things that you guys are really interested in leaning into?
Yeah, I think for us, so one of the interesting things about what's happened over this coronavirus time period is that there's been a real dramatic increase in e-commerce in the grocery space. And, we've been sort of testing and learning our way in e-commerce and beer for years, but have really accelerated in the last couple months. And so I was really excited about a lot of the shoppable products that were shown. There was one from Hulu. I'm going to get the name wrong. Gateway Go.
Yeah, I think about right.
That I thought was interesting, right? Because I think we've done some testing ourselves before of doing QR code overlays on connected TV just to see what would happen. And I think that priming consumers for that behavior. If you think about hopefully a day when sports are back, if you're watching over 4 hours, you could actually order and deliver and have beer get to you during the game. So those kinds of products for us were really promising.
Yeah, and I imagine just like you said, with e-commerce and everything that you have to rethink about now, amid all of this, and we don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of months, that any kind of opportunity to actually get connected directly to consumers to purchase products while watching, content probably makes sense. Maybe we'll talk a little bit now about some of the content that we saw during the week. Garrett, do you want to take over with that?
Absolutely. I'll go to Noah with that. I know he pays very close attention to all the programs. Riveting. So did anything, is there content to be made this year? We're all stuck at home, so I don't know. Can the digital platforms come up with something that's compelling?
I think they can. One of the things I'd point out is Snapchat's happening now, which I think is a really great way to bring news and information on a platform that is surging when it comes to young millennials, and is surging when it comes to Gen Z. We're a partner in that, and I think they've been really thoughtful about how they curate what's in there. So that's a great example of doing something new. The other thing that I thought in a more traditional way, I really like the idea of Steve Martin and Martin Short coming back together. And that was one of the shows that Hulu has on tap. That was really cool.
The two amigos.
That's right. 2 of the 3 amigos.
2 of the 3. 2 out of 3. And measurement. We wanted to ask quickly about measurement before we wrapped up, because I think brands have to know their media is effective more than ever now. It's always more than ever, but now more than ever. And Azania, again, with the brands, you're an advertiser.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jessica has a point of view on this from the agency side. For me, I think that it's great to see people trying, right? Lots of people mentioning adding Nielsen capabilities to their tools. But at the end of the day, we need universal measurement across the digital ecosystem. Everybody having sort of their individual measurement, individual frequency capping, all that stuff is ineffective for us, because we really want to be able to compare how properties are performing, not just within digital, but across digital and linear and all of the other channels. And so I will represent probably many brands in saying we need everybody to keep pushing for a unified system of measurement across as many of our partners as possible.
Yeah, Jessica, can they do that? You're at that place where you can make that sort of happen, maybe.
If I did, I would not be on this panel right now. I think we saw a step in the right direction. A lot of the streaming platforms were talking about ACR measurement, which is a consistent measurement format across all streaming. Again, a step in the right direction, but it needs to go a step further. I did want to call out, I was really impressed, and I thought it was interesting, in the NewFronts, the digital NewFronts, Wall Street Journal and Barron's called out their guarantee on print effectiveness for measurement. So I thought that was great to say, other channels can be effective too, and we need to think about it holistically. So
yeah, put all your money into print next year.
So we're doing, the year of print.
Thank you so much for everyone for participating. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So we have a couple of more shout outs. We have Milton from Brazil, Tia from South Africa, Mark from New Jersey, Anna from New York, and Brennan from California. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And I'm Janine Poggi, senior editor here at Ad Age, and my co-host, that's Garrett. This way, I got it right the first time. That is Garrett right over there, Garrett Sloan, our tech reporter. And thank you for sticking with us. Next, we're going to move on to take a look at what's in and what's out this year. There's been no other year, surely in recent memory, when 12 months has brought about such vast change. Last year, the industry was making Game of Thrones jokes during the NewFronts, and now it was all about quarantine humor. So in our next segment, we're going to take a look at the trends that are in and which have become passé. And here to help us do that, we are joined by Beth Weeks, VP and Media Director at Digitas, Trace Rutland, Director of Digital Hub at Ocean Spray. We have Azhar Ahmed, Executive VP and Chief Digital Officer at DDB.
Hello.
And Kara Lewis, Executive VP of Video Investment at Dentsu Aegis Amplify. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. So we're gonna keep this fun and lively and do a little bit of what's in, what's out. So we'll get straight to it. So one of the words that I had heard in conversations was this idea of ethics over, brand safety, and thinking like ethical consideration over brand safety. Can we, talk a little bit about that? Maybe, Azhar, you want to jump in right away about what brand safety looks like in 2020?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say, with all of the things that are happening within, cultural context, I think it's really woken brands up to the fact that they can't always be silent about things. So I think those ethical sorts of concerns around, just societal pieces, as well as how brands publish and fund different platforms, I think are all coming to the spotlight there. So I think brands, frankly, see a lot more pressure to be thoughtful and choiceful about their media choices and where they choose to advertise than ever. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what they throw their weight around. Obviously some are a little more in hot water than others right now. But I think, again, like going back to the brand proposition, it's going to be, what do you feel like you're offering to your customers and what should you throw your support behind? Because ultimately it is funding for those platforms and publishers.
Kara, are we thinking less about the whole idea of a fraud-free environment and, the whole idea of having content appear alongside controversial content being more prominent now? Or what are sort of the things that you're really paying attention to at Amplify, the considerations that clients are asking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're still talking about fraud when we want to make sure that we're in the right places. But I think we also need to know, every client knows who their consumer is. So it's not like we can just walk away. We want to help some of the vendors into positive areas. And some might take a step back from news and some things that are happening. But I think overall, we're still talking about fraud, brand safety, and then obviously the ethical conversation and consideration is there. And every client definitely has like a different way of looking at it.
Trace, what does brand safety mean for Ocean Spray right now?
Well, I think there's we have a heightened focus on making sure that we do show up in the right places that reflect our brand and what we stand for as a company. I don't know if you know, but Ocean Spray is actually owned by the growers. So it's the farmer families that own the company. It's actually a cooperative. So it's extremely important to us that we reflect that in everything we do and that we make sure that our brand is not just, to your point, in a traditional brand safety way protected, but also in that sort of the medium is the message, right? I mean, that still holds true even now. So we want to make sure we show up in those types of places that make us feel good about where we're investing and voting almost with our advertiser dollars.
Gotcha. Beth, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd say just kind of build year over year. It's been a lot about brand avoidance in the past, thinking about brand safety, where now is that critical moment of joining the conversation in a relevant way. So I think it's definitely kind of repositioned itself year over year, and we've heard a lot of that this week.
Great.
Now, we're also talking about incremental reach, I think. Hi, everyone. I didn't get to say hello first, too. If brands are, going to Roku, going to Samsung ads, they're talking about things like, we want to reach people who aren't on TV, but we want to know when we don't reach them, when we did reach them on TV, so we can not reach them on streaming. So we're talking a lot of these issues. What do you make of that? Starting with Azar, is there anything you think on those?
Yeah. I'd say, the sophistication of some of the ad tech and targeting is actually helping us kind of be a little more flexible on those fronts. So, while there's always going to be pressure to kind of go into the new platforms and new places and be incremental with some of that reach, I think a lot of the philosophies and enterprise frameworks we're really partnering with media on is great in the sense of how do we embrace new audiences and new touch points while at the same time still being efficient with our overall reach and not having to maybe necessarily choose one or the other, but both in a way that scales.
Yeah, that's the term, incremental versus scale. So I guess, what do you think, Trace? Is there any way to envision, to just think about those two diverging things?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't even see them as divergent, really. I mean, a good media plan is going to should cover both, right? You should have should have vehicles that scale, and then you can layer on top of that vehicles that bring in incremental reach. So they should really actually work together between the two. I think from a CPG standpoint, incremental reach is always going to be king until we get a true cross-platform measurement and dashboard. I mean, we can't even get that. So I think that's really important, and to build on what Azra said, and also to think about, from a technology standpoint with ACR, so much more opportunities opened up, and so there's no real reason why, as we do more and more in those arenas, that we don't get to a point where we don't even have to make that decision. I mean, how great would that be? If you're going from a true audience planning standpoint, it's really, you don't have to worry as much about if one specific platform is scalable, because if you're just looking for the audience, you should be where the audience is, period.
Absolutely.
So last year was all about creating non-disruptive ad experiences. This year, the mood is transactional. Are shoppable ads now the must-have format? Kara, do you want to start?
Yeah, we've been talking about shoppable ads for a little bit, and I definitely think they are the new format. I questioned them when they first came out of like, if I'm watching TV, do I really want to be putting my phone up to the QR code? But then I asked around to some people in the agency, and I think people are doing it. So, I think it's definitely interesting. We've been talking to a couple of vendors about that, and I think for some of the retail clients, it could definitely change some things. I mean, it could change probably any category or some categories. I wouldn't say every, but I definitely think we'll be talking, and we have been talking to clients about that.
Trace, is a shoppable and attractive format for Ocean Spray?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even within that format, we know that, of course, my Alexa just hit. But in that format, people pay more attention, even if they don't click through or scroll up or actually buy anything. So we've always been pretty hot on the shoppable format in itself. But now that people are shopping differently, we were just talking about that a little earlier, the fact that, there's we don't know how things are going to end up in terms of paradigm change, but there's definitely going to be that. I mean, people aren't going to shop the way they used to. And this, the pandemic and the stay at home definitely accelerated that. So I see shoppable ads as just being more important every day.
And then to jump in there, we definitely have to address Facebook right now. There's a brand boycott going. I was going to just ask quickly, how is everyone envisioning that? Last year it was YouTube is the boycott. Now it's Facebook, maybe even more digital platforms. Beth, do you see any brands joining this? Have you advised anyone? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, they're critical partners in our landscape. And these are critical issues that we're facing today. Obviously, just reading in the trades today, there are a lot of brands that are getting on board with the Facebook boycott. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how the industry comes together to combat, some of the challenges we're seeing in the marketplace in regards to things like social justice and other areas and brand safety as well.
Yeah. Anyone else? Azar, do you have any thoughts on that? What do you see with CDB?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an old dog. I actually ran a forum pre-Facebook that had a couple of, I think, 30,000 people on it. So I understand moderation and the challenges firsthand. Everybody loves moderation until you're the one that's moderated, right? So I think it's going to be this challenge of how can you scale and still, again, not please everyone all the time, but they've got their work cut off for them, no doubt. It's an emotional loaded subjective area that I think they're going to have to kind of bear the brunt of figuring out for a lot of the industry.
Yeah, that's absolutely what they're doing. And if there's anyone else that I think could weigh in, maybe from Ocean Spray, is Ocean Spray have any thoughts on that?
We are discussing it internally. There are people way above my pay grade who will make that call.
Yeah, I imagine.
Kara, you have any thoughts on that as well?
Probably way above mine too. But we are talking about it, and I would just say that I don't think that there's probably others. And so we can't just walk away from every single vendor, and we also can't support it. So I think we need to all work together, I think, much like Beth said. And we need to help the vendors move forward faster to be able to get ahead of these topics that are happening and that are important, and that we need to try to have our advertisers not surrounding, but also not have our advertisers pulling every dollar off of places that actually do deliver that incremental reach that we're talking about on the scale. So I think it's a conversation that needs to continue, and that it needs to be pushed forward.
So there were a few new generations discussed this week. Hulu talked about Generation Stream, while Snapchat called its audience, of course, Snapchat Generation. well, what happened to good old Gen Z? I don't know, but I guess millennials, are pretty passe at this point. Trace, who are you guys really targeting? What do you make of these types of different generations?
We're sticking with the traditional Gen Z. I like all the new terms, and that everybody's trying to come up with something that really, expresses that group. But I think Gen Z works. I mean, we're really not looking to like reinvent the wheel on that part of it.
Gotcha. How about Beth? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would say it's an interesting perspective. And I think it does bring back to the need to be able to create experiences on platforms for the platform at hand. So you may have a different Snap experience than you would with TikTok. So I think thinking about this, the Snap audience definitely has relevancy, but obviously, as part of essential reach, we are on platforms beyond Snap. So thinking about a broad generation of a Gen Z still has a ton of relevancy.
Yeah, it seems super complicated to have to then start thinking about each platform as a different type of generation and think about different ways to target them and all of that. So it would, seem pretty complicated to do. Garrett, you want to ask the next one?
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to ask about just positivity. I think a lot of the content being raised, it has to have set a positive tone, or if you're, Snapchat had tried to be uplifting. Crackle, I think, was another one with a positive sort of message. Was there any content, or what is the tone of content that it needs to be right now, I guess, would be the question. Start with Kara, maybe.
I mean, in terms of content, I think just take the safe route. People are enjoying, obviously, streaming, enjoying getting into content is king. It will be king. It's going to continue, whether it's off network, new content that these guys are producing in terms of originals. And I think that, taking some of the lighter, safe route is probably the way to go with everything going on in the world. And I think that some of them definitely introduce some interesting programs that are coming out.
Yeah, and Beth, maybe you too. I mean, where is it? I mean, it seems like news, you have a lot of messages that are geared toward news, but then you could also maybe have something a little more light in the mix. And Snapchat and Crackle were the two examples I was thinking of, but it just seems like more fun maybe, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think it boils down to relevancy and thinking about the messaging that you have at hand in light of the time. We have seen unprecedented change in what's happening in our landscape of people shifting messaging to adapt to the pandemic or to adapt to, what's happening in our culture today. So I think the relevancy is the most critical thing. And then also thinking about the platforms at hand. So obviously Crackle provides an opportunity to have a more positive message, just given where their content's going, or different creators that are producing different type of content that is a little bit more uplifting on some of the social platforms.
Well, we're going to wrap it up on that. So thank you all for joining us. It was a crowded panel, but I think we powered through it quite nicely. So thank you, Beth, Kara, Trace, and Azar. And let's do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Take care.
So one of my things that I was thinking about of what's in and what's out this year was headspace breaks. I really enjoyed those. And then last year, do you remember at the New York Times, they made everyone sit in the audience and complete a New York Times crossword puzzle?
Oh yeah,
which was fascinating. So we're gonna move on. We have a fun little segment to do now. We're going to, everyone was tweeting along this week, despite sitting in their homes watching the NewFronts virtually, or maybe perhaps because of it, there was plenty of chatter on social media around this week's presentations. So we followed along and we picked out some of our favorites. So Garrett, do you want to show off one of yours?
Yeah, I believe we're starting off with IAB CEO Randall Rothenberg, and he had a Quibi shot here, I believe. Quibi, everyone's favorite new streaming service, and he came on Twitter and said, watching Snapchat's content leader Vanessa Adamo showcase NewFronts, Snap's hot vertical video programming, AR and VR productions, etc., and I'm thinking, was Quibi just a marketing tool for Snap? Which could be accurate.
You know what I like about Randall was tweeting the whole week. Every one of his tweets had the tag of Upper East Side, so we all know where he was tweeting from. But the Caribbean one was a nice little shot there, right?
Yeah, you gotta have fun.
So my personal favorite tweet this week comes from Peter Naylor, who of course joined Snap from Hulu in April to oversee its US ad sales. And he says, "I'm putting this up by popular demand." Okay, exactly. No one asked for it. "This is my personal favorite image of my first Snap NewFronts presentation. AR and video are driving the business." So yes, no one may have asked Peter for that picture, but I am personally really glad he posted that one.
Yeah, you got the good one to show there.
And we have another one from Ben Winkler, who was really fun watching him watch the NewFronts this week. Winkler recently departed from OMD, where he served as Chief Transformation Officer, but he still followed the week pretty closely and provided some great insights and a few laughs. In this tweet, he comments on Hulu's announcement regarding its Gateway Go ad format, which we just talked about their sort of shoppable second screen experience. Quite frankly, I didn't necessarily understand how Gateway Go is different than some of the second screen experiences that have been around, for years. But Winkler says, "Pause ads with genre targeting and QR codes. I've always loved Hulu ad innovation, but this is the turducken of streaming."
Yeah, cram it all in.
Yep. And we have another one from Winkler who discussed the generations that we were just talking about. And he said, "More than age or a demographic, Generation Stream is united by a mindset. Agencies will buy anything except a made-up generation."
I don't know. I think brands will buy made-up generation. I'm not gonna count that out. Now, should we look at the tweet from Brett Sosnick?
Yes, let's do it.
Tweeted to us about Vivo. "I appreciate Vivo's team wishing me a happy and healthy like it was Rosh Hashanah, but it sounded kind of weird too." So, Vivo's personalization there. And lastly here, or another one here, we have from Michael Pompicella, who poked fun at the 2 minutes the IB scheduled for a break, which a lot of people had fun with because apparently it was, from 12:56 to 12:58 lunch break?
All of 2 minutes, so who can eat that quickly?
So he came in high school, we had 20 minutes for lunch. Think that's quick? Seems NewFronts has 2 minutes scheduled for their lunch. So he caught that too, as some of us, others of us did as well.
Yes, and that's it for our tweets. I'm Janine Poggi, senior editor here at Ad Age, and that's Garrett on my wrong way.
You're on my left.
We're opposite sides. Our tech reporter here at Ad Age, and we are going to wrap things up. And the moment we have been waiting for, it is time for Ad Age's NewFront Awards. And I want to preface this with saying this is our completely unscientific, non-democratized honorifics that me and Garrett sort of just picked out some of our favorite things. So with no further ado, we have first up the yummiest delivered food. And that award goes to YouTube's Pizza. I know Garrett did not actually get his pizza, never arrived to him. But I have to say,
I didn't order it.
You did order it.
I didn't. It wasn't it didn't come.
Well, there you go. If you didn't order it, So I was slightly disappointed because when it came in like a pizza box, but there was no actual pizza inside. There was like dough and toppings, and I had to make my own pizza. So once you get off like the laziness of it all, and I actually built the pizza, it was delicious. And they personalized it because that's what YouTube's whole pitch was this year, personalization. And I had a vegan, because I don't have dairy, a vegan pizza, which was fantastic.
A good make your own vegan pizza.
Make your own vegan pizza.
All right. I like vegans, so that's good. We had the best, like we said, the most made up generation. Someone tweeted about it, as we just read. The brands making up their own generations to brand their own audience. So who did we have? We had Hulu and Snapchat both touted their own made up generations. The Snapchat generation and Hulu is Generation Stream, I believe.
And their one was super weird. I think the award really should go to Generation Stream, because they gave this stat about how Generation Stream would rather give up their music streaming social media, and favorite food before they gave up their streaming service.
Is that true?
I don't know. Definitely not food. I'm not going to give up my favorite food.
Would you? Would you give up streaming for any of those? I don't know.
I mean, you know how much TV I watch.
I know.
I
But
watch a
you what?
lot of TV.
There's still broadcast.
I'll go get a pair of like antennas and just like watch my shows that way. I have to eat.
Good point. You need vegan pizza.
All right. Next, we have the best backdrop of an executive's home. And this was great. I like kind of caught this like last minute, but John Steinberg, who is Altice News and advertising president, had a bookcase wallpaper, and you had to look really closely, but it wasn't actually books on his wall. It was all wallpaper over his whole like room, and it made it look like the whole room was a bookcase.
He faked his bookcase.
Yes, it was
a
awesome.
fake bookcase.
Yes.
It wasn't a Zoom background.
No, I think it was his. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe someone on here can tell me I'm wrong, but it looked like it was his wallpaper. I'm going to have to call John Steinberg and ask him.
Well, you, Janine, right now get the best background. I see Elmo floating over your head.
It was my son's first birthday this week during the NewFronts, and we have some Elmo balloons in the background. I figured it's a party, so might as well bring in the balloons.
I know it's festive. I have to get to the Scott to the best.
Yes,
this was either the best or worst Scott Rogowski shtick.
It feels interchangeable, right? Like
yeah,
whether it's the best or the worst. The best of the worst.
The best of the worst.
I don't know.
I was trying to follow along, and I did piece together what IAB was doing, because the first day he was kind of serious. I was like, wow, he's really serious. But I think they were setting a tone. You know, it had to be a serious first day and sort of talk about serious topics. But they unleashed him on the second day, and he was all full of 2013 memes. I think he stopped paying attention to the internet. And so what did he say? He said he compared TikTok. The only TikTok he knows is Kesha. What? I hadn't heard that joke before, Janine.
He used like all songs to intro things, and like so obviously like sang TikTok from Kesha, you know, to intro TikTok. So, you know, there's that. There are plenty of others. But
yeah, I gotta call out one more. His I think he said, what was it, Daniel with the white Vans? What was that?
Yes, that was one. Yeah.
He had a Danny with the white Vans reference, which is I think that's from 1974.
Yep. And let's end, Garrett, with probably the one that I thought was the best one. You thought of this. I want to give you credit for this award.
Thank you.
So let's get to the last one.
Other than my little scruff, we have to give the best quarantine beard award, because we saw some, but Jesse Angelo of Vice, you win. And I used to work with Jesse Angelo at.
Garrett actually messaged me and said, "That's Jesse." Like, didn't even recognize him. It was a great moment. So, and that's our show. I think we're all done. Thank you to the IAB and to all of our speakers today. As always, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlicht, and Elise Liffring for making this live stream happen. Thank you, Garrett, for joining me, of course.
Thanks for having me.
And for more coverage on the NewFronts, be sure to check out adage.com.
Yes. Take care.